Greetings, fellow time travelers. Welcome back to Ancient Mystery, where we unlock the most incredible secrets of lost civilizations and dive deep into the mysteries that shaped our world. I'm your archaeological guide, ready to take you on the most mind-bending journey through time you've ever experienced. Today, we're traveling back over 5,000 years to witness something absolutely extraordinary, the birth of civilization itself. What we're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about human history. Before we unveil these incredible ancient secrets, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss the shocking revelations we're about to uncover. Picture this incredible scene. There's a place on Earth where history itself was born, a place where, for the first time in human existence, people stopped being mere survivors and became the architects of the future. Before any other civilization you've ever heard of, before Egypt, before Greece, before Rome, they invented the city, carved thoughts into clay, and built the world one revolutionary idea at a time. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind. Almost everything that defines our modern society had its origin in this one incredible place. The first schools and parliaments, the first laws, the first taxes, the first empires, the first medical practices, and the first agricultural calendar. We're talking about the Sumerians, and they earned the title Cradle of Civilization for absolutely mind-blowing reasons. This is the story of a people who, over 5,000 years ago, taught us how to be human in a completely new way. Are you ready to journey to the dawn of time and discover how the Sumerians didn't just write the first chapter of history, they invented the book itself? Everything began in Mesopotamia, which in Greek means the land between two rivers. The Tigris and Euphrates, born in the mountains of Anatolia, carved a fertile arc on their journey to the Persian Gulf. The southern portion of this land, an alluvial plain, became home to the Sumerians. But here's the shocking truth. This wasn't paradise at all. Unlike the predictable Nile, these rivers brought unpredictable and often catastrophic floods. Summer brought scorching heat and droughts that cracked the earth like broken pottery. This was an environment of extremes that demanded ingenious solutions for survival. And here's where the Sumerians demonstrated their first stroke of absolute genius. Instead of depending on rain like every other civilization, they learned to control water itself. They built the world's first large-scale irrigation canal network, constructed dikes to contain floods, and created reservoirs to store water. Can you imagine the incredible engineering feat? They transformed a hostile wasteland into the granary of the ancient world, generating an unprecedented agricultural surplus that became the cornerstone of their revolutionary civilization. With food security achieved, population grew and clustered together, giving birth to Sumer's most transformative invention, the city. And the first and greatest of all was Uruk. Around 3,200 years before Christ, Uruk wasn't just a large village. It was a genuine metropolis, possibly the most populated city on the planet, with between 50,000 and 80,000 inhabitants. Imagine walking through its ancient streets with me. The air is thick with the aroma of barley bread baking in ovens, smoke rising from pottery workshops, and the scent of bitumen used to waterproof riverboats. You hear the constant hammering of copper artisans, the murmur of 1,000 conversations in bustling markets, and the chants of priests ascending the ramp of the Great Ziggurat. This wasn't simply a collection of houses, it was a living, breathing organism, noisy and vibrant, surrounded by more than 9 kilometers of massive walls. Uruk was a center of religious and administrative power. At its heart rose monumental temples like the Eanna complex, dedicated to the goddess Inanna, the patron deity of the city. But Uruk wasn't alone in this urban revolution. The Sumerian plain became populated with city-states, each with its own king and patron god. Eridu, considered by the Sumerians themselves as the first city to exist. Ur, which would become a great commercial port. Nippur, the sacred religious center for all Sumerians. Kish and Lagash, military powers that would fight for supremacy. This network of cities created a complex, vibrant and competitive society that would change human civilization forever. Managing these complex cities presented an incredible new problem. How do you keep track of goods, taxes and rations when dealing with tens of thousands of people? Human memory was no longer sufficient for this massive undertaking. The Sumerian solution to this problem would change the world forever. They invented writing. It began around 3,500 years before Christ with pictograms, evolving into the sophisticated cuneiform script. To master this revolutionary technology, they created the first schools in human history, the adubas, or tablet houses. Let's imagine a day in the life of a young student, shall we? He wakes at dawn, his mother prepares 2 small loaves of bread, and he hurries to the house of tablets. There he fears arriving late because he knows the teacher will beat him with a rod for tardiness. He spends the entire day, from morning until evening, hunched over his wet clay, practicing his signs over and over again. The curriculum was absolutely brutal: botany, zoology, geography, mathematics and Sumerian grammar. On one tablet we've discovered a student lamented, "My head is spinning. After getting up in the morning, I'm afraid of the teacher." But here's the incredible payoff. Scribes became a respected and powerful class, indispensable for temple administration, palace management and commerce. Thanks to them, law, history and literature could be carved for eternity. This was the birth of human knowledge preservation. Sumerian life was completely saturated with religion, and their beliefs will absolutely fascinate you. They believed humans had been created with a single purpose: to serve the gods and free them from work. Their pantheon was vast and complex, led by the sky god, Enlil the air god, Enki the god of water and wisdom, and Ninhursag the earth goddess. But no deity was as beloved and feared as Uruk's goddess, the vibrant Inanna, goddess of both love and war. Her hymns celebrated her with overwhelming passion, singing in her temple, "To her who adorns herself with pleasure, Inanna with beauty. To her, Inanna, power has been given. Destroyer of lands, inspirer of fear, rushing into battle, there is no one who can stop her." Each city was protected by its own deity, whose earthly home was the magnificent ziggurat. But here's something that might surprise you. These weren't places of public worship. They were the private dwellings of the gods, where priests attended to their daily needs like servants in a divine household. Through their incredible myths, the Sumerians explained the order of the universe, the creation of humanity from clay, and the story of the great flood from which only one wise man named Utnapishtim survived. These tales established the relationship of dependence and reverence between mortals and immortals, setting the foundation for religious thought that would influence humanity for millennia. But what was life actually like for an ordinary Sumerian? Let's step into the sandals of a farmer, shall we? His day begins before sunrise, when the air is still cool. He guides his oxen toward the field, a plot of land that belongs to the temple and which he works in exchange for rations. He opens the gates of the irrigation canals, letting the life-giving water of the Euphrates soak the earth. He spends the day under the relentless sun, guiding the seed plough through the fertile soil. At dusk he returns to his adobe house where his reward awaits: a measure of barley, sesame oil, and most importantly a jug of fresh beer, the drink of both gods and men. The society was clearly stratified in fascinating ways. At the top stood the king and priests. Below them, a middle class of artisans and farmers, and at the bottom, slaves. But here's something absolutely remarkable. Sumerian women enjoyed notable rights that would shock many later civilizations. They could own property, run businesses, and act as witnesses in trials. Their contribution was recognized and protected by law. Well now, initially, power in Sumerian cities rested with the priests, the intermediaries of the gods, you see. But as competition for land and water intensified, a new figure emerged, the Lugal, or great man, a military leader who eventually became king. Sumer's history, honestly, is marked by incessant warfare between city-states, and we have incredible archaeological evidence of these conflicts. The most documented conflict was the long border dispute between Lagash and Umma, immortalized in the Stele of the Vultures, which narrates King Anatum of Lagash's victory. It's one of history's first monuments celebrating military triumph. This mosaic of warring kingdoms was abruptly unified around 2,334 years before Christ by an outsider to Sumer Sargon of Akkad, a man of Semitic origin. He conquered all the Sumerian cities and created something completely new, the world's first empire. Although the Akkadian Empire eventually fell, the idea of unifying Mesopotamia endured. After a period of chaos, Sumer experienced a spectacular renaissance under the third dynasty of Ur, known as Ur III, led by kings like Ur-Nammu and Shulgi. This period saw massive bureaucratic centralization, an explosion of temple construction, and the creation of the first known law code. It was in a way the swan song of Sumerian civilization. The practical genius of the Sumerians left an indelible mark on our world, and you use their inventions every single day, whether you realize it or not. Their mathematical system, based on the number 60, the sexagesimal system, is why we still measure time in 60-minute hours and circles in 360 degrees. They were pioneers in technology that, quite frankly, revolutionized human existence. The invention of the wheel transformed transportation and pottery making. The seed plough enabled much more efficient agriculture, and they were possibly the first to use sails, harnessing wind power for river transport and trade. Their observations of the sky laid the foundations of astronomy. They identified planets and constellations, although mainly for divinatory purposes rather than pure science. Here's what's truly incredible. Sumer was a land poor in natural resources like wood, stone, and metals. This scarcity drove them to become exceptional traders. Through the Persian Gulf, they established a thriving commercial network with distant lands. From Dilmun, they imported copper. From Magan, they obtained diorite for their statues, and from distant Meluhha in the Indus Valley, they brought carnelian and other exotic goods. This was, without exaggeration, one of the world's first international trade networks. We've read their laws, their hymns, and their epics. We've excavated their cities and measured their temples. Clay tablets have revealed miracles to us, but here's the fascinating truth. For every answer they've given us, they've raised new and profound questions. Despite everything we know, the land of Sumer remains shrouded in a veil of mystery that continues to baffle archaeologists and historians worldwide. The first and most fundamental enigma is what scholars call the Sumerian problem. Who were they, and where did they come from? Their language is a ghost in history. It doesn't resemble any other known language in the world. Not the Semitic languages of their Akkadian and Amorite neighbours. Not the Indo-European languages. They simply appeared in southern Mesopotamia with a culture already fully developed. Were they an indigenous people who developed their culture in place? Or did they migrate from some unknown homeland? Some theorists suggest they descended from the eastern mountains, others that they arrived by sea from an ancestral homeland possibly related to the Indus Valley civilization. Their own legends speak of beings of wisdom who came from the sea, but the evidence remains inconclusive. The origin of Earth's first civilized people remains their best-kept secret. Perhaps the darkest and most dramatic mystery lies beneath the sands of Ur. In the 1920s, archaeologist Leonard Woolley discovered the Royal Cemetery, a necropolis of the Sumerian elite from 4,500 years ago. In one tomb, alongside their lord or lady, lay the bodies of more than 70 people. Soldiers with their helmets and spears, court ladies with their jewellery, and harpists with their fingers still on the strings of their instruments. There were no signs of violence whatsoever. The evidence suggests they marched into the tomb, took poison, and died voluntarily to accompany their leader into the afterlife. Was this an act of blind faith, unthinkable devotion, or an obligation they couldn't escape? We'll never know the truth that was sealed in those tombs. And then there's the mystery of the Great Flood. Sumerian tablets tell us the story of Ziusudra, a pious king whom the god Enki warned of an impending flood sent by the gods to destroy humanity. Ziusudra built a great boat and survived, preserving life on Earth. This story is by far the oldest known version of the flood narrative, predating the story of Noah in the Bible by more than 1,000 years. But here's the mind-bending question. Was this just a myth? Woolley himself, excavating at Ur, discovered a stratum of clean clay almost 3 meters thick, evidence of a massive flood that at some point inundated the region. Was this the flood that inspired the legend? Or was it an even greater event whose memory was etched into humanity's collective consciousness? The line where geology ends and myth begins remains one of history's greatest enigmas. Toward the end of the 3rd millennium, Sumerian civilization faced a fatal crisis. Soil salinization made agriculture increasingly difficult, while pressure from external invaders like the Amorites and Elamites mounted relentlessly. Around 2004 years before Christ, the great city of Ur was sacked and destroyed. Sumerian political power was extinguished forever, but here's the incredible truth: their legacy lived on. Their cuneiform script continued to be used for over 2,000 years. Their laws influenced legal systems throughout Mesopotamia. Their literature, including the Epic of Gilgamesh, became part of world heritage. Their mathematical and astronomical knowledge spread throughout the ancient world. Most importantly, they proved that humans could create complex societies, preserve knowledge for future generations, and build civilizations that transcend individual lifespans. They showed us what it means to be truly human, not just survivors, but creators, innovators, and dreamers who could transform the world through intelligence and cooperation. Fellow time travelers, as we conclude this incredible journey to the dawn of civilization, remember this profound truth. Every time you write your name, every time you look at a clock, every time you live in a city, you're experiencing the legacy of the Sumerians. They didn't just write the first chapter of human history, they invented the very concept of recording and preserving human achievement for future generations. They transformed us from wandering tribes into builders of cities, from oral traditions into writers of eternal words, from simple survival into the pursuit of knowledge and beauty. The mysteries we've explored today remind us that history is not just about the past, it's about understanding who we are and where we're going. The Sumerians may be gone, but their revolutionary spirit lives on in every human achievement, every technological breakthrough, and every step forward in human civilization. What do you think about these incredible Sumerian mysteries? Which discovery amazed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing journeys through the corridors of time. Until our next archaeological adventure, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop wondering about the incredible mysteries of our shared human story.